Thanks for joining us on 7 After 6. I'm Chad Charette here with Mark Prasuhn, who's the General Manager of WPBS. Now, Mark, the world of public broadcasting received some news this week. On Monday, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the board voted to dissolve. What I'm curious about is what that means for you. For viewers that aren't familiar, I believe the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was one of the biggest funders of stations like WPBS.
Yeah, it was the primary funder, a conduit for federal funding for over 50 years for all the PBS stations across the country. And so it's closing this month, and dissolution, which, as you said, was just announced on Monday, is low and disappointing, but it doesn't mean that WPBS is going anywhere. We've had to adjust, of course, to the loss of federal funding, which happened last July. And so we've had to make budget cuts. We've had to appeal to our supporters, and thankfully people all across the North Country have been enormously generous and really stepped up to help us. So we're continuing on. We're going to keep doing our services and keep doing what we do, but in some ways a little bit differently because of the need to be more, really streamlined and efficient. But we're not going anywhere. The closure of the CPB, as we call them, does not cause us to close or jeopardize us directly.
I know we did a story back in October regarding some of the adjustments you had to make. I believe October is when the funding officially ran out.
That's
correct?
right. Yeah.
What were some of the things you had to do back then?
It was a tough few months for sure. We cut our staff by a third, so very significant reduction. Several people had to leave, and we also reduced some of the contractors and third parties that we work with for different services and so on. We had to eliminate our Insights printed program guide, which we'd been doing since 1971. So that was a huge step and disappointing, because we know a lot of our members and supporters really valued having a print TV guide, basically, of the month, but we just couldn't continue to afford that. So in a lot of ways, we made different trims, but we weren't going to be able to cut our way to dealing with that big of a loss of budget alone. So we had to also ask for help, and thankfully we got plenty of it. So we're in a pretty good position for 2026. The longer-term future will really depend on us continuing the momentum and continuing to get the support from the community that we've seen since July. If that can continue, then we will be here for the long haul, and that's certainly our intention.
That's when you started the defunded but not defeated slogan, right?
That's right.
I'm curious, what are some of the groups that have been helping you out the most since then?
Well, many individual donors all across the region, and we serve a big region. It's well beyond Watertown, of course. This is where we're based, but we serve the 3 counties. We reach also been into Oswego, Oneida, Franklin County, and then we're up in Eastern Ontario as well. In fact, about half of our members and viewers are in Ottawa. So we've got this enormous, 15,000 square mile area that we're serving. And within that, there's a lot of folks that are stepping up and supporting us. So just in terms of the membership side, we've seen the growth now. In the pandemic, we had about 5,000 members. We're now approaching 10,000. So that is an enormous boost that we've seen over the last several years, and it really picked up after the cuts. We've also got a lot of corporate partners and a lot of nonprofits that we work with in this community and across the region as well, and they've all been very helpful to us.
Leading up to this interview, I watched the story that we did back in October, where you mentioned that you were across the border, even in Ontario, I believe it was Kingston, and you were speaking with people there that actually support and watch the station.
It is really, PBS is the most trusted media brand in America, and it's probably the most trusted media brand in Canada as well. It is just enormous, the brand equity. And, I've been there 7 years, but this is something that's been built over 6 decades. And really the leadership and the hundreds and hundreds of people, including some that work here, that have been at WPBS in different roles over the years, have really contributed to building that trust and that goodwill. And that is very, very obvious in a circumstance like this. And we see it in Kingston. We see it at Brockville. I was in Cornwall recently, Ottawa as well, all those towns throughout Eastern Ontario. There's a lot of goodwill and a lot of support. Even at a time when there's tensions between the two countries that are not insignificant, we have seen as kind of separate from that, and we're very grateful for that, of course.
That's actually something I wanted to talk about. We're about a year into the Trump administration. You talked about the public trust of PBS. Not going to mince words, the Trump administration does not like PBS. I believe that the official words was that the station was called biased. We're a year in, there's 3 years left of the Trump administration. Are you expecting any more recourse beyond defunding?
Well, it's hard to say what else could happen, of course. I mean, it seems like in the news cycle, things are every day changing. So we really don't know. I mean, from where we're sitting here, obviously, WPBS, we're serving the North Country. We're not a news or opinion station or outlet. That's not really our role and never has been. The local programming we do reflects our community in a lot of different ways, but it's not about politics particularly. I mean, we've had, political leaders on air, including local ones like Assemblyman Gray or Senator Walczak recently, for example. But it's not, we don't claim, like you guys do it so well, there's no need for anybody else to do it in this community. So we are, and we're not an opinion, we're not, we're not taking positions, we're not political. So I feel like, we're in the right place. Maybe not everybody sees it that way or agrees with it all the time, and that's okay. That is normal, and we're in a democracy, and there's many different points of view, of course, as there should be. But I think, for us, the North Star is really balance, fairness, serving the community, serving everyone in the community, and not excluding anyone or taking any particular points of view that would be, leaning or excluding or, leaning in one direction or another overly.
When it comes to actually being able to continue to serve the community, what sort of efforts have you folks been engaging in to keep the money flowing, keep the funding going?
Well, we're fortunate because of our educational mandate, we get some support from the state, particularly for some of the education services we do, like the GPS for Success career website and WizQuiz and other things that we do for classroom use and curriculum. So there is funding from that source, and then, of course, the members and what we call underwriters, our sponsors, our corporate partners and nonprofit partners. So those are all more important than ever now because the big piece of the funding was taken out in July. So we really are very, very reliant on those folks and, of course, doing everything we can to keep those relationships as strong as we possibly can.
That was about a third of your funding.
That's right, yeah. And it was also quite damaging because it wasn't like a future budget. It was the budget year we already were getting into. It was clawed back. So the effects were very immediate, and we had to really move very quickly and make a lot of changes very quickly.
Is that at all demoralizing?
It has been in some ways, I can't lie. I mean, for me and for staff colleagues, there were hard times. There were days people were, very upset in the office and so on, and we saw it, with supporters and longtime people that we'd work with that they took it hard too. So it was a blow for sure. But, we're resilient. We're picking up and carrying on, and I think we're still, when I look now where we're at and the things we're doing for the community, it really isn't, there's been no material change. There's been no deterioration of those services. Even though we've had to make a lot of changes, we've been able to carry on and really focus on what was most important to the community.
And what will change here, but have you been in contact with other PBS stations? I'm curious how they've been affected by this. Seems like you're, I don't want to say lucky, but it seems like you're making out okay. Did this hit other stations harder?
It was very, quite variable, and the common pattern really is that the federal funding, as it was intended to do, and it was first started in the early 70s, was disproportionately oriented to smaller and rural stations. So they're the ones that have taken the hardest hit. And so in New York State, that would be ourselves and Plattsburgh, Mountain Lake PBS, are really the two smallest stations. And the federal funding made up a much larger proportion of our budget than, say, Buffalo or Albany or New York City. And that's the pattern all across the country. So we are seeing for sure some damage, some stations that are in jeopardy. They're not a lot yet, so it's still a little bit early to tell. But we're seeing some pressures in places like Pensacola and State College, Pennsylvania, Arkansas. Alaska for sure is quite vulnerable because there's a lot of small, very small stations up there. Montana, Wyoming, and so on are under pressure. So there are Washington State as well. So there are a lot of regions of the country, but typically they are the smaller rural stations that are really hit. And the one thing we have seen is some foundation support, which will be one-time funding, but still money that is going to come in and help us and others in kind of getting through the next year in that space. And the foundation money that's coming is very directed to those smaller stations that they know have taken the hardest hit. So, the time will tell, but we intend to be around for another 67 years, and we're certainly taking every approach every step we can to keep that going in that direction.
But what about in 3 years? That's one thing I'm curious about. Are you optimistic that you could see your federal funding restored eventually? Obviously, Donald Trump's on his second term. He can't serve another term.
Well, it's obviously there's a lot of folks that have played a role in the change in the defunding, the change in the funding. Not just the president, obviously, in his administration, but also in Congress, and so we'll see. I think that one thing we've heard, and our representatives and folks that we work with in D.C. have heard, is that a lot of a lot of members on both sides of the aisle, House and Senate, have said, we're not happy with maybe some of these national shows or things on PBS or NPR, but we don't want to hurt the small rural stations because we know how important they are to their communities and what they reflect and do for their communities. So I think there might be this, I'm hoping there's the seeds of something that we can work with and build on. And as you say, it may be 3 years out or maybe even a little more, but I do think there will be some potential to see some kind of support. It's not going to be what it was before. It's not going to be that way, but something that maybe can help those, especially smaller stations, so that, because ultimately we want to have a national network where every American has access to what PBS does and offers for free. And if it's only in the big cities, that's not achieving the objective.
Have you reached out to any of our local representatives, Congresswomen Tenney or Stefanik, about this?
Yep.
Have they gotten back to you?
Yep. Well, there haven't been recent conversations. We have met with them in the past for sure, and I think they, have different views on different parts of what we do. But I think, for example, Congresswoman Tenney, I know from talking with her, she's been supportive of the emergency alert role that we play and understands that, WPBS owns the tallest transmission towers in both Lewis County and St. Lawrence County. So in this region, we are a pretty important piece of the emergency alerting system and the backup for cell phones and, those warnings and so on. So I know, and she's told me, is very supportive of that function. So it varies, and obviously everyone's going to have different perspectives. But I do think there's seeds of potential rebirth, if you like, or, sort of things coming back in time. But for now, we've adjusted to the new reality, and we're making sure that whatever else we do, we protect the core services and continue to serve the community effectively.
And for now, like you said, those core services aren't in any immediate danger of closure.
No, we're going to keep doing education services, community events, local content production on many fronts, and we're not letting up on that.
So what's next for WPBS? Any new programming that you want to tease here?
Sure. Well, we've got a new show going into its second season called Look for the Helpers, Portraits in Community Service. They're interviews with community leaders and people that have given back to the community through nonprofits and in different ways. That starts its second season next Tuesday. And so we're very excited about that. We're continuing with our WPBS Weekly, our current affairs show as well. We've got some new things going on. We're launching online with platforms. We're getting into TikTok, which we have not really been that involved with yet, but we're starting to experiment with that as well. So there's a lot going on. And our new series, Upstate Attractions, which focuses on different destinations in the North Country, is being released nationally in the next couple months so it'll be on PBS stations all over the country. We're very excited about that.
What's one of the things that you guys highlighted in that show? I'm curious.
Oh, well, we had 6 episodes. So we did Safe Haven down in Oswego. We were over at the Wild Center in Tupper Lake. We went up to Messina to the Seaway Museum, down to Watkins Glen, the Raceway Museum, the Alfred Ceramic Museum as well. So we were all over the region, North Country and a bit beyond as well, but basically upstate New York. And really want to show off those great destinations, and that's a lot of what we do.
we're starting to wrap up here, but is there anything you want to add? Anything you want to talk about, call attention to?
You know, I just want to say I'm very, very grateful to everyone in the North Country that supported us, and also, Chad, to you guys. You know, you've been a great, great partner, and you know the media infrastructure in Watertown and Jefferson County, it to me is really amazing in the sort of mutual support. I mean, we've got Mel Busler hosting our Whiz Quiz show. You know, we've got Johnny Spizzano on air working with us. I mean, there's just a lot of mutual support and goodwill, which honestly, I've worked in media in bigger cities. You don't see that everywhere. So we're really lucky here, I think, to have that for sure.
Small town feel of the North Country is nice.
Absolutely.
It doesn't feel like you're really fighting with anyone else when you're out in the field like that.
No, very complimentary, you know, with the Times, radio, everybody. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity, Chad. Thank you.
All right, I'm Chad Charette, the Digital News Desk. Have a great night.